Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and greetings to everyone. Welcome to Verify Halal TV. I am Noor Iziati and I will be the host for today. Alhamdulillah, our guest for today is Mr. James Chambers, Chief Operating Officer at American Halal Foundation, AHF. Assalamualaikum, James Chambers. How are you today?
I'm doing wonderful, alhamdulillah. Thank you for asking. I'm the Chief Operating Officer over at the American Halal Foundation, and I've been involved in the halal industry for about 15 years. I converted to Islam about 25 years ago. In fact, this will be my 25th year. Sure, when I converted to Islam, one of the shocking things that I kind of found out was really a lack of halal products, especially things like beef and poultry. I would often go into the local butcher shop and see, there were very few cuts that were available. Sometimes it was just a leg of beef or maybe a whole chicken, and they weren't really good quality. And as I learned more about the halal industry, and saw so many, interesting and quite frankly, dodgy practices that were happening, it really motivated me to get into the halal market because I wanted to make some really meaningful change for Muslims in America. And now I can see that, we're making great strides. We have a lot further to go, but I really want to make sure that, we are also trying to share these halal products, not only here in the US, but also outside of the borders with the rest of the world. Yeah, it's a great question. So like I said, for about the last 15 years, I've been working in the halal industry, going from converting non-halal abattoirs into all halal abattoirs. I was also the executive director for HAFSA, the Halal Food Standards Alliance of America, for 7 years. And then while working with the abattoirs, I had several great experiences and learning experiences with exporting beef to places like China, Hong Kong, and Vietnam. Oh, sure. So, the American Halal Foundation itself is a really beautiful organization. It started with the sincerity of Mazhar Husseini, who's the founder of American Halal Foundation. And he really had a focus on wanting to improve halal conditions for all Muslims in America. We do have offices based in Seattle, headquarters in Florida, as well as offices in Chicago, Maryland, Rhode Island, and Arizona. One of the things that many of your viewers might not recognize and be aware of is there is a very large number of Muslim prisoners in the American penal system here. Not that they're Muslim and they went to prison, but they went to prison and accepted Islam, and now they're coming out. Well, one of the things you find is the quality of food that's available in these establishments is often of very low quality, often not halal, and often found with pork directly in those products or pork byproducts in those foods. So by establishing basically a food canteen or halal canteen program for Muslims in American prisons, it's a great way to offer. The easiest way to put it is, authentic halal meals for Muslims to be able to have in a difficult environment. Yeah, it's a fascinating question. One of the reasons I'm here in Los Angeles is we have basically received, or I am doing an audit for a small cosmetics manufacturer. And they've specifically come and said, we want to export our vegan animal-free products to Malaysia and to Indonesia, but they were very keen to emphasize the name Malaysia several times. It's interesting because at AHF, we receive daily inquiries for companies from a number of fields wanting to export out of America. And in the vast majority of our inquiries, when we ask them what is motivating their desire for halal certification, it is for export opportunities. And then when we dive in deeper and we ask them, hey, what countries are they interested in exporting to? Malaysia is always a top request. Halal is a great opportunity and differentiator for US companies, but it needs some context. So in the US, seeing that a product is kosher certified is a really important standard in America. But outside of the US, kosher certification might not be as relevant or accepted. While there are similarities in both certifications, there are a number of differences that both the producer and the consumer may miss. And as we explain value of halal certification to US companies and the importance of building trust with the Muslim consumer, halal certification becomes far more relevant to US companies. Now, granted, these folks are motivated not by sincerity of religion or moral obligations. It's a financial opportunity that they see. It's a marketing opportunity that they see to say that they're halal certified. But as we see more and more companies not just inquiring about it, but demanding halal certification, we feel that there's coming of a critical mass to where we're going to see just a huge influx of companies wanting to become halal certified in America. Also, a great question. So, in America, America is a really large country. And for your viewers who have never traveled to the United States, or you look at it on a map and you're just like, it's a big plot of land, the easiest way I can explain it is go hop onto a plane from KL, fly to Tokyo, nonstop, but never see water. You're just overland the entire time. And as a consequence, we're a really large country. I believe we're about 10 times in size of population in terms of land mass as well as population with Malaysia. My numbers might be a little bit off, but there's a good population difference. And the population in America for American Muslims is very interesting because you have huge concentrations in areas like Southern California, where I'm at here in Los Angeles, but also in the Bay Area for what we would call San Francisco, as well as the Chicago area, Dallas, Texas, Houston, Texas, Florida, through different areas, and also New York and New York City and the New Jersey area. But at the same time, you do see Muslims in what we'll call smaller cities and smaller populations all across America. Wherever you can go find a mosque, you're going to go find some Muslims. Well, food is something that's very relevant here in America. We're one of the largest producers of food and foodstuffs. And with that being said, halal protein is really an untapped market here. We have some of the best beef products in the world. With JAKIM requirements to have all halal facilities, it becomes a big challenge. But we have found a number of medium-sized abattoirs willing to make the conversion as they see the opportunities both internationally as well as for domestic consumption. When we also think about the domestically produced products, like cosmetics, beauty supplies, we see a huge uptick in companies coming to us that are keenly aware of the need to be halal certified, and they're wanting to cater to Muslim consumers, again, both domestically and abroad. Also, what we call base product suppliers. So these are the folks that are not producing a finished product, but the suppliers of the ingredients that go into that finished product. So we might have a company that wants to certify perhaps a cosmetic item. Perhaps they want to go and have some type of a facial cream they want to go and have done. Well, while it's great to be able to certify that product, what we really see now is as we go to those companies and say, look, we need to verify the halal authenticity of your base product, we also approach them and say, would you be interested in halal certification? And what ends up happening is their normal response in the beginning is, well, maybe, we're not really sure. But then we go and say, look, with having proper halal certification and oversight, you have the opportunity to reach out to a number of international markets, and that usually gets everybody's attention very quickly. So, when we talk about that opportunity for a producer that's out there, usually we're speaking to them about an area of, revenue, or, increasing their revenue or improving their image among Muslim consumers. And as they understand the value of halal certification and building that trust with their Muslim consumer, it clicks in their head and they get it. When we talk about how we educate folks on halal, so most people in America are really ignorant to Islam. Not in a bad way, they just don't meet a lot of Muslims in their day-to-day life. There's perhaps 6 to 8 million Muslims in the US, but we have a population of about 370 million. The odds are pretty high that, if you're not a Muslim, you're just going to go through your day and not come across any Muslims. But when we're dealing with actual companies, you need to come up with a way that is easy for them to understand and relate to it. Trying to speak to somebody about, religious obligations in a very secular country is often a big challenge. So what I came up with was a concept of explaining halal as an allergen. I came up with this a few years ago when I was training a group of Muslims a group of chefs on halal food production. And by going through and explaining halal as that allergen, we're now talking to them not about a physical benefit, but the spiritual benefits of halal, because that is a difficult concept to explain. But when you explain it as an allergen, it kind of gets and makes sense. And it comes across to any US supplier, whether you are a manufacturer of food, you're manufacturing a chemical, you're manufacturing any type of a product that a consumer will use. Almost every single manufacturer understands allergens. It's something that they get, and they understand, the concept of nut-free, gluten-free, soy-free, any number of frees that's out there. And when we approach and explain to them this allergen as something that's going to hurt our spirit if we consume it, it's much easier for them to explain it. And they get much more serious about it as well. We just finished doing a certification of a sausage facility. And the sausage facility has pork in it. And this is something that, your viewers in Malaysia never have to think about, but it's something that we in America have to deal with on a very frequent basis. So when I'm explaining to them, when they come to me and they say, well, can't we just use soap and water and really good detergents to clean the area? And I go, well, that's great, but we got one more step we have to do. We have to do the ritual cleanse. And in some cases, and in this case with this company, they actually did the pushback. They're like, well, ours is really clean and our tests come back very low and there's nothing there. And I said, you're absolutely right. And we're so happy that you've done that. But the one more thing that what we need you to do is make you to understand that this part that we're talking about for the cleanse, it's for the Muslim heart. And when they understood that, I remember very distinctly that their QC and their QA director, there was 2 gentlemen that's there, they came to me and they said, when you started talking about halal as an allergen and how it impacted a person's spirit, you made our hair on our arms stand up. And they said, we've never dealt with anything like that before. And I said, well, I said, I appreciate that. I said, I'm really happy that, my passion and what I believe in shows up to what you folks are wanting to do. And, I did 2 full days of ritual cleansing training. We went through all the steps. We did all the requirements for what they have to show us to prove that, they've done a ritual cleanse whenever they have to produce a halal product. And we put in lots of high levels of what I call trust but verify. We're going to trust you, but we're going to have you verify with photos, with videos, with lab test reports. We're going to make sure that everything is fine. And it's not because we think you're going to, backslide or cheat or cut corners or anything. People make mistakes. Sometimes things are not clean to the level that they need to be. But going to it, it's so important because they understand it and they got it. And, I'm so happy that we have this type of influence in the marketplace. And I really think that, if there's a message that I kind of throw out to all the certifiers that are out there, to anybody who is going to the Muslim world, and you are dealing with, needing to show Muslims, that it's a halal product, not just the certification, but you understand halal is an allergen and we need to treat it as such. And it's not an allergen that's gonna, make us get zits or, cause our skin to turn red. It's an allergen that, when we have that or we consume it, even by accident, it's something that hurts our heart. It hurts our spirit and our soul. Well, nobody really escaped the hits and the damages. All industries in the U.S. got hit quite hard for the first 18 months or so. There's supply chain interruptions from not having raw materials to work with. It's transporting those raw materials and finished goods, all across America. I kind of described to your viewers, how big the U.S. is. It's moving product across America can often take 3 or 4 business days. It's a big long haul. And the economic hits to individual households from people that were unable to work. It really did hit, all industries and all halal industries in the US to one degree or another. In the halal industry specifically, the biggest hits was definitely to the abattoirs. You had workers that were too scared or they were getting sick to come into the abattoirs or other protein further processing facilities. And several of these businesses closed or reduced their production substantially for well over a year. As we see COVID becoming more or less accepted in daily life, I mentioned again, before we started, we're kind of throwing away the mask mandates. 43 states out of 50 states in America by the beginning of March will have no mask mandates. But we still have 200,000 new cases a day of COVID. So, we've pretty much accepted COVID as being part of our daily life. And the vast majority of halal focused industries like abattoirs are back in full or close to full production. And we see American companies focused on growing domestically now. We see them, especially the halal industries, we see them really coming back and being much more focused. I know that in the beginning, it was very difficult for many businesses. I experienced the stress and the strain and the challenges when I was the director of HAFSA that came with, all of these issues that I've made mention. But I will say this, now it's a good time for American businesses as a whole. The benefit of being a Muslim in a country like Malaysia is you have Jakim. And I know that there are people that have different views and opinions of Jakim, but at the end of the day, they are an outstanding organization that has enforcement authority. They have oversight. They're checking all the products that are coming into your country, with that trust but verify side to it. When you leave the borders of Malaysia and you come into a country like the US and you come across halal, that enforcement goes away. And you're left with either hoping that the product you're going to eat is halal, or relying upon, the local mosque, or maybe there's a certifying body, or you'll find a website. But even in a lot of those cases, you will not get great answers. So I guess the way that I would put it is, if your standards for halal are the same as Jakim standards, America might become a great place for your weight loss program, depending on where you visit. Now, with that being said, on a personal basis, I love the work that Halal Food Standards Alliance of America, that's HAFSA, does for the American consumer. And this will apply very well to Muslim consumers that are coming in from Malaysia. At their website, you can find a restaurant where all the ingredients have been checked and verified for their halal authenticity. And it's really liberating to be able to walk into a restaurant, look at the menu, and order anything that you want and not have to wonder, can I eat this or not? And again, you folks are kind of spoiled in Malaysia because you have not only Jakim certified entities, but you also have an overall sense of halal. I've had the privilege of being to Malaysia many times. I'm very happy to hear that the doors are opening in March and I don't have to do a 7, 14, 21-day quarantine or anything. I love having the opportunities to be able to go to KL or Penang or wherever my dining fancy takes me, and not have to be overwhelmingly concerned about what's going to be there. If I steer back real fast though to the American Muslim, or excuse me, to the Malaysian visiting consumer, what I would just say is be very careful and cautious about seeing that halal sign and just thinking that it's automatically halal. I do a lot of work in the New York City area, and you will find halal food carts on every block. They are all over the place. And if you ask the average non-Muslim consumer, what is halal, they will go and tell you, oh, halal is chicken, white sauce over rice or on rice. And that's what their understanding of it is. But if you're a person that says I'm going to eat to Jakim standards, unfortunately, none of those folks will meet the standards. And it's something maybe I'll talk a little bit more about in a moment. But the halal standards in America are all over the place, and quite frankly, not great at times. Getting better, but not great.
Yeah, so actually when we're talking about this checking the halal status of the products, we have actually an application called Verify Halal, where actually we work alongside with the certification bodies globally, not just Jakim in Malaysia, but also in other parts of the countries. So we actually share real data of halal certified products, premises, and also abattoir. Currently, we have used by 179 countries in 4,450 cities globally. So actually this application is not being used only for consumers, but also by the producers, because sometimes here in Malaysia we have person in charge of halal in every production manufacturers. They are called the halal executives. So usually these halal executives, they are using these Verify Halal apps to actually check the status of halal and just to ensure the products are halal certified before it can be used in the factories. Just sharing information with you, sir.
Oh no, it's wonderful, and one of my plans is to make sure that we also include as many of our American Halal Foundation products at the Verify Halal app, because I think that it has a lot of benefit, and it works when you have more data that's for the Muslim consumer to be able to use. Well, simply put, in America, the demand is greater than the supply for halal products in the U.S. When we go and see the number of, there's just not enough of everything. I constantly see products being brought in to the U.S. That are coming in from other countries, and the feedback is amazing and popular. I'll use one. I don't talk about specific companies, but I'll speak specifically about one Malaysian company that I've seen do an incredibly good job in both Muslim halal markets as well as non-halal markets, which is Lot 100. You guys, it's a gummy candy that has Jakim approved gelatin products in it with different fruit flavors, mango being my favorite because I'm a big mango fan. And we see it, I see it in all across America. And I think that when you have a great product that can be brought in, you can really hit home with a lot of stuff. And I see Malaysian products, I'll put it this way. I don't see nearly enough Malaysian products in America. And I really think that when you see how diverse our country is, how interested people are in trying different and new cuisines, you'd be amazed to see how fast something will grab onto. Just as one tiny example, and I won't plug the coffee. This is a coffee from a Vietnamese coffee shop, and 10 years ago, 15 years ago, the only place that I could go in to get a coffee like that would be to walk into a Vietnamese cafe, maybe have where there's bread or a sandwich or something of that nature, and ask for a coffee. But in the last 2 or 3 years, and I've even seen shops opening in Malaysia, you see this type of a product taking off, incredibly well. I don't know if there's a spot out there for a Teh Tarik chain, but I know that there's lots of amazing products here in this country. Lots of amazing products that come to this country that could take off. I just absolutely know it. It's just a matter of finding the right partner and that right product in the right area in the world or in America to distribute it. So speaking from a certifying body standpoint, we would love to see a uniform standard for halal that matches or exceeds Jakim standards. Seeing a step away from, controversial subjects and topics that, not only scar, the reputation of U.S. companies, but sow doubt about the legitimacy of what certifying bodies are doing in America. In Malaysia, you have very clear standards in regards to hand poultry, land animals such as beef and cattle and lamb, all come from all halal facilities that are highly regulated, whether those are, in Malaysia or outside of Malaysia. But in America, we see things like vertically killed cattle, which you don't see. We see modified kosher halal cattle. We see machine-killed poultry. And when you see these products, there may be some type of a debate. There may be some type of a scholarly back and forth that will go on it. But at the end of the day, it causes confusion for Muslim consumers. And this kind of takes me back to, that Malaysian Muslim that wants to come here and, they want to eat and they see the products that are there. Well, the sad reality is that there's no easy way to go and identify that is coming from a hand-killed poultry, machine-killed poultry, or some guy that paid just enough money to get a certificate and now it's quote-unquote halal. So we really would love to see all of the certifying bodies here in the U.S. come together with a unified standard and do halal where there is no controversy. You will go and have people debate about machine-killed poultry and, can a machine do it and can a machine not do it? But nobody's going to go and say, oh, you killed that chicken by hand? We're not sure if you should have that or not. Well, no, there's no debate about that one. For me, when I think about expos, when I think about these events, it's all about exposure. It's about letting consumers go and see something that's new and different and letting them experience that, by, basically their hands. Just hearing about it in social media or an ad on Facebook or in a WhatsApp group or something, that has benefit, but being able to go and see the folks that are often the owners themselves or managers, it makes a really big difference. I've always had the pleasure until COVID hit for several years of being able to attend Mijas. And it was always a wonderful event to be able to go and see everything from, food coming in from other countries to, modest fashion, things that in a majority Muslim country that in America, I just don't see. And there's, not really a big presence for halal expos right now in America. There's a couple of small ones that, obviously, have not went on for the last few years because of COVID, but they don't have nearly that reach that big events like the expos do, in Malaysia. Well, my acceptance of Islam is all tied into food. I had a work colleague, his name was Ibrahim, and he was, and still is, he's still my friend, of course, but he was one of the kindest people that I've ever met. And he almost never talked about religion. He never spoke about Islam, only in the most, passing of manners. And he would always invite me to his home, and he would talk about that we eat a halal diet. And I didn't really know what that was at the time. I was like, okay, it's halal. Halal to me at that time meant really tasty. Like it was really good food. That's about where it was. And it was through my experiences with him that led me attending Eid al-Fitr at the end of Ramadan. And I wasn't going to go to that Eid because he had talked to me about coming for prayer. And my mindset at that time was, I heard the word prayer and I was like, oh, I'm not really interested. And he said, oh, there's going to be great food there. And because he said there was going to be great food there, I said, you know what? Yeah, sure, I'll go. And I remember going to a hockey arena. And I remember going to this hockey arena and I saw him for a couple of moments and we got kind of lost in the crowd. And I made it over to where the food was at. And I was really unhappy because instead of the great food that he had talked about and promised me, there was donuts and orange juice. And I had actually planned on just turning around and leaving to get out of there. But at that point in time, they had already made what I now know as the Iqamah to come to prayer. And I ended up doing my very first prayer without even realizing that I was praying. I got stuck in the middle of the crowd. I couldn't get away from the masses of all the people that had piled up around me. And I always make a joke that I ruined the Eid prayer of probably 3,000 people because while everybody else is praying and doing their salat properly, I was, a little bit like a gopher sticking his head out, looking around and wondering what was going on. And I know I was impacting some people because right after the prayer was done, I had several people come up to me and in Arabic, they started going la, 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 la. And I didn't know what that meant either. And I said, I'm sorry. And then they heard my voice and realized I wasn't an Arab. And they were like, no, it's okay, it's okay. And then they left. And I decided that I wasn't going to go find that food. And I said, I'm just going to take off and I'll get something to eat. And just as I was leaving, I heard somebody saying their shahada, but I didn't know what that was. I just heard them saying it with the imam, and he was speaking into the microphone. And at the end of that, I heard about 3,000 people all say, after takbir, Allahu Akbar. And I didn't know that much about Islam. I was still ignorant. But when I heard all of those people say takbir, even now, 25 years later, it gets the waterworks. And food brought me to Islam. And I'm so thankful for those who have been around me and supported me and pushed me harder and harder to do better and corrected me when I've made mistakes in the halal industry, because we do. But my destiny, really, my qadar Allah, is to be in the halal industry, because I can't imagine not being in food and not doing this work. Of course. So, well, the way I always put it is keep going, just keep pushing forward. We have all types of things as Muslims that happen in our life, and non-Muslims, of course, as well. And it's never what happens. It's always what our reaction is to what happens. And we're never going to be perfect. We're going to make mistakes, but we always push forward. And for those companies that are out there that are working in the halal industry, keep pushing, innovate, try new products, listen to your consumers, ask them. It's so common these days to just make the assumption that we know what the consumer wants, and we're just going to, shove something out there. But I think that, taking the time to really, really ask them, what's important to you, is so critical. But if I, always leave, consumers, Muslims, non-Muslims, manufacturers, whoever it is that's out there, I always say, we do our best, we place our trust in Allah, and, we always focus on having that good reaction when things happen to us, whether it's something good or bad. We know that it's something that's planned by Allah, that we just have to roll with. Thank you for having me on board. It was a real pleasure to be here.